it was interesting. Matt LaFleur was asked about the players' survey. So they did player surveys forever, but the owners don't like it because especially like Arizona or the Jets or a lot of these owners, they get called out. They get Fs. Matt LaFleur did not get an F. He got a B minus. B minus is not a D minus. A B minus is basically my college transcript, and that's fine. But what I like about it is that he didn't deny it. He said, I got to figure out why. He addressed it and he owned it. And I think that's what smart people do and what smart organizations do. They stay ahead of problems. Proactive, not reactive. So a prime example is the San Francisco 49ers got a very solid grade, a B to a B minus with their training staff and their training facilities. They immediately addressed it. $9 million into upgrading their training facilities, and they hired 3 or 4 more trainers to give the players more individual access. So, I mean, player surveys are not everything, but they're something. I think by and large, now they're occasionally in any workforce, you're going to get grumpy guy and, you know, I'm not getting treated fairly guy. But when you have a collective and, you know, Matt LaFleur, who, by the way, since 2019 is second to Andy Reid in wins by active coaches. So he's tied with Harbaugh for second. He's ahead of Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay. So he's a really good coach. But this is what I've always lauded the Dodgers for. Dodgers were number 1 in baseball, number 1 in attendance. They win the World Series in 2024. What do? Improve the stadium. Like, stay ahead of stuff. Be current. So the Yankees.
All right, forget the Yankees for a second. Think more along the lines of the Green Bay Packers. So, here's the thing. I've spent a fair amount of time discussing Matt LaFleur, especially during the previous offseason leading into this most recent campaign. You remember. I was pretty adamant about what I needed to witness from both LaFleur and Jordan Love, all of that. And the reality didn't quite align with my hopes. But then something interesting happened. As this offseason began, or, I suppose, closer to the tail end of the regular season, people started questioning whether Matt LaFleur would even keep his job. Was he becoming a liability? And my stance never wavered, no, absolutely not. Matt LaFleur is a quality coach. Matt LaFleur is genuinely good. We need to hold on to Matt LaFleur. I consider myself a big supporter of his. He's got flaws, sure, just like any other head coach. We witness it across the league. Just take a look at the so-called top 5 coaches since 2019. Folks are already saying Andy Reid's schemes feel outdated. Matt LaFleur, well, you know the deal. John Harbaugh was shown the door. With Kyle Shanahan, people argue he falls apart in the second half, that he can't secure a win without an early lead. You remember how Colin used to hammer away about Shanahan being too rigid, too glued to his script, on and on. And Sean McVay, we've all seen him make head-scratching calls during critical moments, leaving you to ask, you really dialed that play up on 4th. And 2? What on earth was that? And that's simply how it goes. Honestly, this occurred to me maybe a week ago. That's precisely what makes football so fantastic. I can sit here and critique a mistake Sean McVay made, thinking, I can't believe Sean did that. Meanwhile, the man probably knows more about football than I will ever grasp about any subject in my entire life. So there's a certain comedy in me saying, I can't believe Sean did that. And that's the perfect illustration of a universal truth. No matter your level of greatness, no matter the depth of your knowledge, no matter how much of an expert you've become, you will still make errors. And there will always be someone waiting around the corner to pass judgment, to tell you that you messed up. It's a genuinely valuable life lesson. Because if the absolute top experts in their respective fields face criticism and slip up, then you can be certain you'll make your own share of mistakes. And you will absolutely be judged, by friends, family, coworkers, total strangers, whoever it may be. But the whole B- situation is really intriguing, and I don't feel this gets discussed enough in this context. People immediately assume it's all about the head coach. And that's not always accurate. Sometimes it is, no doubt. And it's tough to know for sure unless you have a deeper understanding of the dynamics. A team truly evolves into a community. Now, I've mentioned my background as a player before, all of that. But what's AC? Truly more interesting to me, my mind doesn't go to the teams I played for. Ironically, it goes back to when I worked as a counselor at a men's inpatient rehabilitation facility. Because that environment turned over far more regularly than any sports team I was ever part of. Especially once you compete at a higher level, you tend to have the same coach for a long stretch, and the core group of teammates stays relatively consistent. So there isn't a ton of turnover. You just fall into line regardless of the circumstances. But in that rehab setting, I observed something pretty quickly. Every 1 to 3 months, the patient community would completely recycle. People got discharged, they left. Meanwhile, the treatment team remained the same staff, the same therapists, the same techs. And sometimes, for a certain period, everything would click perfectly. It just worked. Everyone understood what needed to be done. Everybody was motivated, well-behaved, and so on. Other times, it was a nightmare. You'd find contraband hidden in air vents, and there was just pure chaos. You could swing from one extreme to the next. 1 month, the whole community would tell you, "You're the best counselor ever. You're so good. You really care about us. You're amazing." They'd be grateful to be there. Then, in the blink of an eye, a different group would say, "You're terrible. You have no clue what you're doing. You're the worst. I don't want to be here." And the reality is, I'm the exact same person. My coworkers are the same. Nothing changed on our end. That experience was a crash course in how drastically things can shift, and especially how groupthink spreads, how attitudes become contagious within a community. And the same applies to a sports team. So when you see a B- grade, you might immediately jump to, "Oh, see, the players don't like Matt LaFleur, blah blah blah." But it could be Matt LaFleur's doing. And sure, Colin is somewhat downplaying what a B- means. If you're a head coach, you interact with your players all day, every day. They all know who you are, and you know who they are. It's a very intimate working relationship. I'm not going to claim that someone like Matt LaFleur has that deep, one-on-one closeness with every single player, that's impossible. But everyone knows who the coach is, and the coach knows them. It's a tight-knit relationship. Would love to understand how the rating works. When you grade your coach, is it a single question? Or are there specific criteria? Specific questions you answer that then get combined to produce that letter grade? For example, I feel the coach helps me achieve my goals. I feel the coach is open to my questions and concerns. I feel the coach is approachable. Right? I don't know if it's broken down that way. Pretty much any time you've had to fill out a survey, whether for a teacher, a boss, any situation where they ask, "Would you take a quick survey?" They'll ask, "Did I answer all your questions? Was it easy to reach someone?" I don't really know. It could be as simple as rate your coach and that's it. My guess is it's probably a bit more detailed than that. You grade multiple aspects, and then it gets averaged together. But honestly, I don't know. That's just my assumption. So it could be just a couple of specific factors that really pull his grade down. Maybe he's not seen as approachable, and that dragged the score. Or perhaps players don't feel he hears their concerns. That could be part of it. I genuinely don't know. It could be his fault, or it could simply be that the community itself is a bit off, frustrated for whatever reason. The connection just isn't there. Now, you could take a hard line and say, "Well, that's on Matt LaFleur to solve. He's got to meet his team where they are, etc." And some of that is true. Some of it isn't. Part of it is simply about roster instruction. We talk a lot about the importance of culture, and usually we view it through the lens of the head coach and maybe a leader like the quarterback, a Mahomes or a Josh Allen. We say, culture, 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 because I'm a huge believer in culture. I think it's critically important. But sometimes you have a team with too many players that you simply cannot unite. You can't build that culture because you don't have enough guys willing to buy in. I've played with plenty of individuals who, looking back now, make me cringe at the thought of sharing a field with them. I'd hate to have to coach them. I'd cringe just seeing them in a grocery store. I'd think, oh my goodness. How do you even wrangle all those personalities together? I'd want nothing to do with them. I'm not going to name names, but specific people immediately come to mind. I can see them clearly. I can picture myself talking to them on the sidelines, on the bench, wherever. And I just think, oh my gosh. You might be really talented, but I want zero association with you. I don't want any part of it because I know the things you say during drills. I know the things you say on the bus or the plane. I know what you do in the locker room. I know who you are. And I don't want that energy in my locker room. But here's the thing, you don't always get a choice. You don't always get to pick. So I do think these situations are more complex and interwoven than just, oh, Matt LaFleur got a B-, case closed. That doesn't automatically mean players dislike him. It doesn't mean he's not a good coach, or that he's unlikable, or whatever conclusion you want to draw. Because you also have bad coaches who receive great grades. I don't recall specific examples from this season off the top of my head, but I know it's happened in the past. So it's not all straightforward. Colin talks about this, the interim coach is always beloved in the locker room. Interims are always popular. But that doesn't mean they're the right person for the job. And then we've seen other coaches over the years who have been highly successful and yet were never adored by their players. So it's interesting. For me, at the end of the day, I need a coach who does two things. First, makes me feel comfortable. And second, gives me solutions to the problem. I say that all the time. I need a coach who provides answers because problems are always going to pop up. I defend a Dan Campbell. I defend a Nick Sirianni. I need a coach who can solve the issue. I need to be able to walk up to them and say, I don't understand this. I'm confused about that. I failed in that moment. What do I need to do differently? I cannot work with a coach who just says, come on, man, you've got to put in the work. Yeah, we practiced this. You just have to work harder. I'm thinking, what does that even mean to me right now? I need a concrete solution. I also need a coach who empowers me. And that's where I'll defend the Dan Campbells of the world. A coach who makes me feel like it's okay to make mistakes. A coach who makes me feel like I am putting in the effort, and I know that I am. A coach who doesn't make it feel like everything I do is wrong or destined to fail, or that one single error means it's all over. Like, I just lost my starting job. I'm losing my minutes. I'm losing my reps. I don't want to be in that kind of environment either. But I don't know. Here's what I can guarantee, I could probably connect on a deeper, more personal level with those players than Matt LaFleur ever could. Yet, Matt LaFleur could, without a shred of doubt, help those players win more games than I could ever dream of. And on the surface, I'm very confident people would say I'm more likable than Matt LaFleur. I really am confident about that. Based on my observations of him, I'm certain I'd be a much more fun hang than Matt LaFleur. So it's entirely possible that I could receive a higher grade from the players than Matt LaFleur does. And yet, that wouldn't mean I'm a better coach than Matt LaFleur. So that's where these grades become tricky. You have to be a little careful about how quickly you jump to conclusions based on them. And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think there's enough information available to draw any strong conclusions. But I do appreciate the approach Matt LaFleur is taking. Because regardless of how you got here, whether the B- is more on him or just the general vibe of the team, etc., that's irrelevant. It is still Matt LaFleur's responsibility to navigate the situation. And let me tie this back to that community I mentioned earlier, the one at the rehab facility. When we had a group that kept saying, you're bad. You're terrible. You don't know what you're doing, it was still my job to handle it. It was still my responsibility to meet them where they were and help them. To find a path forward. Because I can't just shrug and say, well, that's your opinion. See you later. You have to help the people in front of you. So I do respect the approach Matt LaFleur is taking. And I'll keep watching closely. But I'm genuinely curious, if there are any Packers fans out there who follow the local media or the insiders closely, and you have any more information about this, like other reports on what specific issues some players might have, please let me know. Personally, I haven't heard anything specific. So if you've got that kind of intel, definitely share it. I'd love to read up on it. I mention this fairly regularly, I never want this channel to come across as me having all the answers. There's no way I can know every single detail about every single team at every single moment. That's why I talk about community so much. I truly see this as a community. So I rely on you all to say, hey, I listened to the local Packers radio, and they mentioned that this is what they heard. That kind of stuff keeps me informed. It gives me a deeper understanding of everything. And then we can talk about it. So those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Drop your opinions in the comments below. I read every single one. Whether you agree with me or disagree, either way, let's start some discussions. Let's get into some debates. but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you become a part of it. I want to build something that we all feel genuinely connected to. Something that we're all really excited to be part of. And I think we're well on our way. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.